picture a CEO, what do you see? Probably someone in charge, surrounded by a team, making the big calls. We all think about the long hours, the stress, sure, but do we ever think about the silence? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on that often hidden reality of being at the very top. Let's get into it. This line from our source material just nails the paradox, doesn't it? The view, the achievement, the power. It is absolutely breathtaking. But it often comes with this profound loneliness that most people never see, and frankly, that most leaders are never really prepared for. For a long time, that phrase lonely at the top kind of sounded like a humble brag, right? But what we're learning is that it's not a feeling to feel sorry about. It's actually a fundamental structural part of the role. The isolation is built into the architecture of the job itself. So where does all this isolation actually come from? Well, it's not just some vague feeling of stress. It's the direct result of three very specific, invisible burdens that are pretty much unique to the person sitting in that final decision-making chair. First up is something you lose almost immediately, the chance to just vent, to appear. When you're a manager or a director, you have other people at your level. You can grab a coffee and say, hey, I'm really worried about this new strategy, or I have no idea what to do here. As the leader, that safe space just poof, it's gone. And this is where it gets really tricky. Think about this high-stakes game you're forced to play. If you show any real doubt to your team, you could tank morale. They need you to be confident. But if you show that same doubt to your board, well, now you're risking your credibility, maybe even your job. You're caught between a rock and a hard place. Okay, the second burden is less about tactics and way more emotional. It's this constant, crushing awareness that your decisions aren't just about numbers on a spreadsheet. They're about people, real people, and their lives. This is what our source calls the human ledger. A budget cut isn't just a number. It might be a family's mortgage. A change in strategy isn't just a pivot. It could be the end of a career path for someone who's given you their all. That weight is immense, and you carry it by yourself. And this is such a great way to picture it. You can be in a room full of your employees, you can be laughing, talking, but there's always this invisible glass wall. You are responsible for them, but you can never really be with them in the same way again. That separation is a huge part of the loneliness. Now let's talk about the third burden, because this is where everything starts to pile up. This one is about pure cognitive drain. From the second you wake up, your day is just a relentless flood of questions, problems, and people needing you to make the final call. Think of your brain like a phone battery. You start the day at 100%, but every single choice you make, big or small, drains that battery a little bit. By noon, you're down to 60%, and by mid-afternoon, you're running on fumes, maybe 10% left in the tank. And here is the absolute kicker. You're often down to just 1% of your mental energy when, guess what? The day's biggest, most important crisis lands on your desk. You're forced to make your most critical decisions when you are at your absolute worst. So when you're facing all of this, it is so easy to feel like you're failing, like you're doing something wrong. But what if we've been looking at this whole thing completely backward? It's time for a really important reframe. This is the question that just haunts so many leaders. If I were a better leader, I'd feel more connected. If I were stronger, this wouldn't feel so isolating. Sound familiar? It's an incredibly common internal monologue. And this brings us to the most crucial insight of this whole conversation. That isolation, that weight, that fatigue, it is not a sign that you are failing. It is not a bug in your leadership software. It is a feature of the role. It comes with the territory. And accepting that is the first most powerful step you can take. So if this is just a feature of the job, does that mean you're just stuck, doomed to be isolated? Absolutely not. Acknowledging the reality of the problem actually opens up a brand new path forward. It's about being intentional and building a totally new kind of support system. Here's the key. The solution lies outside your company walls. Your new toolkit for connection involves people who are not on your payroll and not on your board. We're talking about mentors who've walked this path before you, peer groups with other leaders who get it, and executive coaches who are trained to be that confidential sounding board. So why is this external community so critical? Because it's the one place where you can finally be completely honest. It's a space where you can admit you don't have all the answers, where you can workshop a crazy idea, and where you can show some vulnerability without risking your credibility. It's where you get to drop the mask. Building this new circle isn't just a nice to have. It is absolutely essential for any leader who wants to sustain their performance and their sanity. The journey starts by seeking out communities built for this exact purpose. The resource you see on the screen, for example, is all about providing this kind of support. Because here's the bottom line. While the top of the mountain might be lonely, you do not have to climb it alone.